Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel, and today I'm going to talk about the history of Singapore with my brother Terry.
Hi everyone, I'm Terry,
How old are you?
8 years old.
Okay, let's start. So, I'm going to start with the prince who found the city called Sanila Utama. Well, Sanila Utama is actually called Sang Utama. He was a prince from Sumatra. So this place is Sumatra. This is an island of Indonesia. Now let's go back. One day he sailed to explore some nearby islands. He stopped at one of the islands and went hunting with his men. They saw a deer and ran after it. Do you think he can chase out with a deer?
No, because the deer is very fast.
You are correct, but they could not catch up with the deer. Sanilo Utama climbed up a big rock in search of the deer. He could not see the deer. Instead, he saw a beautiful island across the sea. The island had a wide, sandy beach. What do you think the island is?
Temasek.
Okay. Sanilo Utama asked his men for the name of the island. One of his men told him that the island was Temasek. What does Temasek mean?
Trading port.
Actually, it means seaport. Sanilo Utama decided to set sail for Temasek. While they were in the middle of the ocean, a storm arose as Sanilo Utama and his men were sailing towards Temasek. The ship was tossed about in the sea and a lot of water entered the ship. The ship was going to sink. One of his men advised that all of the heavy goods had to be thrown overboard to stop the ship from sinking. Sanilo Utama and his men threw the goods into the sea, but it did not help. The storm became worse, with huge waves and strong winds. The only heavy object left on the ship was Sanilo Utama's crown. One of his men pleaded with him to throw the heavy golden crown into the sea. Sanilo Utama threw his crown overboard and the storm stopped at once. He and his men were able to continue their journey to Temasek. Sanilo Utama finally arrived in Temasek. He was very pleased with what he saw. The sand was beautiful and white. There were many birds, plants, and colorful flowers. Sanilo Utama and his men saw an animal on the island. They had never seen such animal before. The animal had a black head, white neck, and a red body. One of Sanilo Utama's men told him that the animal looked like a singa, which means a lion. Sanilo Utama thought that the animal looked majestic and impressive. He felt that catching sight of it was a good sign. He decided to remain on the island and set up a city. Temasek was renamed Singapura, which means Lion City. Sanilo Utama became the first ruler of Singapura. He built his palace on a hill. What was the name of the hill?
Bukit Larangan.
Correct. He built his palace on a hill that was then known as Bukit Larangan or Forbidden Hill. Why was it forbidden?
I don't know.
Let's continue first. The rulers of Singapura after Sanilo Utama continued to live on the hill. The commoners were not allowed to go up the hill. According to the legend, the Malays would not go up the hill as the hill was a burial ground for the rulers. This is the story of Sanilo Utama founding the Temasek Island, now known as Singapore. So he found Singapore. Let's continue. So the next story we're going to talk about is Paramiswara and is linked to Temasek. Paramiswara and his men were at war with forces from East Java. So East Java is about here. This is Java Island. This is East Java over here. Wait, sorry. Okay. He was defeated, so he fled to Temasek. So he went from here, about here to here, after that to Temasek, which is Singapore now. The local ruler of Temasek welcomed Paramiswara, but Paramiswara tried to make himself the ruler of Temasek. However, he was defeated again. Paramiswara was not a really good guy, right?
Yeah.
So he abandoned the Temasek and escaped to the north. He settled in a place known as Malacca and eventually founded Malacca as the center of trade. So this is a story actually of Malacca and Singapore. Okay, so when did this happen? Do you know?
Around the 1400s BC.
About this happened about from the 14th century to the 15th century. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the founding of Singapore as a British port. But at first, I'm going to tell you when Europeans first came to Singapore. Okay, in the 16th centuries, which is the 1500s, the first Europeans came to Singapore. So the first Europeans came to who came to Singapore are the Portuguese. So Portuguese, you know, Portugal guys. Okay, in the early part of the 1800s, the Dutch controlled most of the trade in Malay archipelago. This is called the Malay archipelago. This made it difficult for the British and other Europeans to trade here. The British wanted to find a port that was not controlled by anyone. Thomas Stamford Raffles was then in charge of a trading port in Bencoolen. So Bencoolen is somewhere around here. He went to India to meet Lord Hastings, the Governor-General of India. They discussed setting up a British trading port at the southern end of the Straits of Malacca. This trading port would be a place where traders from all over the world could do business. The British would be able to compete with Dutch for control of trade in Malay archipelago. So he sailed around the Malay. He sailed from India to the Strait of Malacca, which is over here. This is called the Straits of Malacca, which is about 1,100 something kilometers long. Then after that, he found a good location at the southern end of the Straits of Malacca, which is Singapore over here. So Singapore's location is over here. You saw this word Singapore, right? Then, along with him was Major William Farquhar, his colleague and his friend too. So on 28th of January 1819, Raffles and his fleet of ships entered on St. John's Island, south of Singapore. Raffles was greeted by the Orang Lot, who told him that the Temanggung of Johor lived on the island of Singapore. Temanggung means Temanggung is a Malay term for chief. Raffles was impressed. Why was he impressed, Terry?
Because there was a harbor with deep waters for big ships to call at the port.
Yes, correct. And
There was plenty of fresh water so that ships could stop at ports for water before continuing their journey.
Okay, Singapore was located along the main trade road between India and China. So in this direction is China. Okay, so if you go over there, you'll reach India. So the British came from the Europe, and they came to India. Then after that to Singapore. Then after that to China, and eventually to Japan and go back. It went and goes back. Yeah. Raffles decided that Singapore was to be a free port. So what does a free port means, Terry?
I think free port means everyone can go there to trade.
Actually, it means that ships do not need to pay to use the port in Singapore, and any trader from anywhere in the world could come to Singapore to trade. So this is very attractive, right? And of course, Raffles quickly went to see the Temenggong. However, Singapore did not belong to the Temenggong. He could not give Raffles permission to set up a British trading port in Singapore. The Temenggong told Raffles that Singapore belonged to the Sultan of Johor, who had just died. The Sultan left behind two sons. Between them, there was a competition for the throne. It was very common, right?
Yeah.
Raffles decided to recognize the elder son, Tengku Long, as Sultan and asked him for permission to set up a British trading port. So the Sultan just came out from nowhere. When Tengku Long arrived in Singapore, Raffles informed the Tengku of his decision to recognize him as a Sultan of Johor. On 6 February 1819, Raffles and Tengku Long, who was given the title Sultan Hussein, held a ceremony to sign a treaty. The Malay traders allowed Raffles to set up a British trading port in Singapore. In return, the British would pay him a sum of money to the Sultan and the Temenggong every year. So let's summarize it. So when did Sanila Utama discover the island of Temasek and rename it to Singapura?
In the 14th century.
So Parameswara tried to make himself the ruler of Temasek somewhere around 14th century to 15th century, and in the early 16th century, the Europeans arrived and set up trading ports in the Malay archipelago. And of course, in the 6th of February 1819, Thomas Stamford Raffles founded Singapore. He signed a treaty, but although he only controlled the southern part of Singapore, the northern part of Singapore was controlled by the Dutch still. Oh yeah, I have something to tell you, but first I need to ask Terry. Do you know where Raffles arrived in Singapore?
I think they arrived at here.
Here?
Yup.
This is not correct. Let me tell you the correct answer. He arrived at here. This place is called the Raffles Place to remember Raffles' arrival. Thank you for watching. And of course, in the next video, I'll talk about the early settlers. See you next time.
Bye, guys.